So with that, I'd like to introduce our last panelist. And I must say that when I heard that Troy Sultan had left Google, I said, what, is he crazy? Because Troy and I have a very nice history. I remember meeting him in Tallahassee, and he was intrigued about Gainesville and our whole startup community here. And I encouraged him, well, come on down. And he did. And he made a tremendous impression on those of us in the entrepreneurial community in Gainesville. He worked for Groove Shark. And I think what you're going to hear from in Troy is this yearning for something that really, truly reflects who he is, which is an entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, Troy Sultan.
Thanks, Whit. You guys hear me? Yeah? Oh, cool. There we go. Hello, everybody. I'm Troy. Like Whit mentioned, I left Google just a couple months ago. I'm working on a brand new company. It's called Flake. And Flake is an app that makes it really easy to make plans with your friends, get reminders so you remember what those plans are that you made, and keep track of which friends commit to your plans, and then flake out. And it sounds kind of crazy, because it is, right? And we're having fun, and it took us a long time. It took me a long time to get to a point where, I was comfortable doing the things that people thought were crazy. And I'll kind of, the sentiment I kind of want to leave you guys with today is that doing things is really important, even if you don't really know what you're doing, because when you start doing something, that's the very juice and the momentum that you need to open up a bunch of doors that you wouldn't have foreseen ever even existing, let alone opening for you. So kind of walk you through how I ended up where I am now. So I went to FSU. I wasn't sure if I was going to admit that to you guys. I went to Florida State. I actually grew up a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. That's another thing I probably definitely... Oh, cool. Yeah.
Security.
I was the one in the FSU section during Miami FSU games wearing Miami stuff, and I had FSU student tickets. And I was in the FSU student section. It was dangerous. So I entered college as a biology major, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And what I mean by thought I wanted to be a doctor was, it went something like this. I had this picture in my head. I would graduate school, get my degree in biology. I would go to med school. I would sacrifice those years. I would learn a lot. And then I would get into the field of medicine, and I would kind of find a bunch of really smart doctors that wanted to kind of band together and start a little practice. We'd start this little practice, and we'd grow, and we'd grow into maybe some sort of a clinic, right? And then we'd grow that, and we'd find a bunch of people. We'd help them. We'd grow into some sort of hospital system or something, right? And we'd be helping all these people, and we'd be making all this money, and we'd be running this hospital system. I had one conversation that literally changed my entire trajectory. And I had a conversation with somebody who went into medicine, and he told me that if you're going to do this, if you're going to go into medicine, you have to be in it 100% because you want to help people, not 99% because you want to help people and 1% because you want to make money, but 100% because you want to help people. And I thought really hard about that, and I asked myself the hard question, which I had to be honest with myself in the answer with, and it was, what am I really going into this for? And I really wanted to help people, but I also really wanted to make money. I wanted to create things. And I realized at that point in time that I just wanted to build things, and I wanted to build things that made money, and definitely didn't have to go to med school to do that. So at that point in time, I changed my major to business. I did what I had to do to catch up on what I had lost, and I had started this business. I'm going to kind of skip through this pretty quickly. So we tried starting this business called Stuku, and it was the worst name ever. I can't even hardly say it without cringing, but it stood for student coupons. And student coupons was a business that it was actually Groupon. Before anybody knew what Groupon was, we thought that was the most clever model we wanted to bring into the college market. And we didn't start that business particularly because we loved the idea. It was more so because we had no money, and we thought it was going to be the easiest thing to start and market. And we thought it was super clever and kids would get it. So we started working on that, and it failed in many ways. I had worked with the wrong people. We had lost a bunch of money. We were frivolous. We didn't know where we should be allocating our resources, who we should be talking to. But we just got out there and started talking to people. One thing led to another. I ended up meeting a lot of smart people who were interested in what we were working on. That was probably the most valuable piece. And with a couple of those people, we would band together for an event called Startup Weekend, which was coming up. And it's like a 3-day hackathon where you go in and you try to build a business in 3 days, and you try to win $20,000 in funding or something like that. So I put together this team of people that I had met building Stuku. we came up with this idea that I was really passionate about. I'm a big reader of books, and I really like audiobooks because I think they're more efficient. And I thought, I read a lot of web content, so how can we bring this to the web? How can I bring the things I read on the web into audio formats so I can read that, right? So we put together a plan. We went into Startup Weekend. We pitched this idea. We worked on it for 3 days, really, really hard, and we pitched it, and we won $20,000 in funding. And so we would spend the next year working on this, which was also really fun, but we'd also lose a lot of money. We would make a lot of mistakes. We'd do just about everything wrong. But we'd meet even more smart people, and a couple of those guys were the two founders of GrooveShark.com, which you guys should be familiar with because they're in downtown Gainesville. And when our company, we realized that things weren't working, GrooveShark was growing really fast, and they needed help, so I would end up getting recruited out of my own company by my advisors into GrooveShark, where I would meet more smart people than I'd ever seen in my life in one room. And it's this trend of starting to do something, you have no idea where it's going to take you, and you end up in a really, really cool place around a bunch of really, really smart people. And one of my favorite quotes in my entire life, I heard when I was a lot younger, and I tried to live by this, and it's very played out by me at this point, but it's if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And it's not that I ever really thought I was the smartest person in the room, it's just that when I was in a place or a situation where I wasn't learning anything, and I felt like I knew what the next couple months looked like, I can kind of guess at it, and I was comfortable, I knew I just had to pack my stuff and leave, and that's what led me to in a really exciting period at GrooveShark. We'd grown really, really fast, and we had become stagnant where I thought I knew what the next few months looked like, and I would then leave and go to San Francisco to work for Google. And I worked for Google for just under a year under that same exact premise. I would go there and meet a bunch of smart people, and then we'd find something fun to work on then. So long story short, I'd leave Google and work on Flake, and looking back on it, I think there was a lot of points in time where people thought I was absolutely crazy, and maybe I am a little crazy, but I think for some reason when I think about those people and those instances where I felt like I was being thought of as crazy, it reminds me of this word sacrifice, which I think is really important for you guys to think about, because when you try to do things that are different or like society isn't used to, the idea of risk, and it doesn't really mesh with the things that your friends and parents are thinking that you should be doing, I think that you need to understand that you have to sacrifice a lot in the short term to actually make kind of strides in the long term. So, you guys are probably, a lot of you preparing to go to college, and I remember many years in college where I was working on these businesses that nobody had ever heard of, we hadn't even launched, my friend just had to take my word for it that we were working on something interesting. And they would try to get me to go out every single night, and I would say yes a lot of those nights. I would go out and have a really good time. But there were some nights where I really wanted to go out, but I knew it was best for the business. We stayed in by myself and read and worked and did whatever. So I had to sacrifice a certain percentage of my fun to get a business off the ground. If I hadn't done that, I would have never landed where I am now. And so think about sacrifice. I have too many friends that see a really nice car or a yacht, and they're like, I can't wait till I buy that. But they have no actual plan. So how I always thought of life, and this may put things into perspective for you guys, is where you have to be at the end of life to be completely happy and smiley when your work is completely over and completely content with what you accomplished. So if I'm like 75 and no longer working, what will I have had to do in my life where I could just sit back and be completely happy no longer working and happy with the impact I made in the world, and then try to reverse engineer that back. And that's how I've always kind of looked at life, and I think that's the most important thing you can do, because if you don't think of what you need to do in order to be happy, then you're sort of shooting blindly. And lastly, because I'm probably going over time, I think that if I can go back and tell my high school self one thing, well, I tell my high school self a lot of things, but I think one interesting life hack that I believe true is that books are the secret to life. And I'll paint this picture for you really quick. So you guys all probably know who Bill Gates is, and I'll use that example. So if Bill Gates writes a book and it takes you 10 hours to read that book, and you were to have a situation where Bill Gates invited you to sit down in an office one-on-one with him, and he was going to prepare, he was going to think for months on the 10 most important hours of information he could give you. He's going to aggregate it all in the most important order, and he's going to sit down, and you're not allowed to talk, and he's just going to spew that wisdom to you for 10 hours, right? That would be the equivalent of sitting down and reading a book by Bill Gates. So the more of those books you can read, the more instances of learning from really, really smart people that have spent their lives making mistakes, and then another part of their life writing it down for you to learn from. Go read books. It's the secret to life. It'll then make you inspired and motivated to go do more things, which will open more doors, and you'll end up doing really, really cool stuff.
Perfect. Thank you, Troy. Troy, why don't you stay on stage, and why don't the rest of the panel please come on up too? Panel with Troy, please join Troy on stage. So we're going to have just a kind of, maybe we can do a question for me, maybe a question. Are we okay on time? We're all right? So the panel's here. I have a question. None of you look or sound crazy to me. Why do you think you're crazy?
Is that the question?
Yeah, why do you think you're crazy?
I think I'm crazy because if you open up your program and you look at that first picture, it's me going like this. And that is, as you know, a very good description of my team and I. We are just known for our very eccentric and wild culture at the shop. And, it's what makes it fun for us.
Okay. Payal, what
makes me what?
What?
I think I'm crazy right now, probably because I'm a year and a half into my business and I'm still not paying myself. But it's worth it because I think the impact that we're making with the community and hopefully inspiring people like you guys to be entrepreneurs is what we represent. So I think I'm a little
Great.
crazy.
That's a great crazy. Rob?
Man, crazy. Nothing about my business, I don't think, is too crazy. So I'll pick a very specific random example. I dance salsa. I think that's in the thing there somewhere. But if it's not, it should be. But anyway, I drive down to Tampa sometimes like 2 hours to dance 3 hours on a Friday night, then come back 2 hours at like 4 in the morning on Friday, Saturday morning. So I'll drive longer than I actually dance. I think most of my friends have told me that's crazy. So there's an example.
That's crazy. Gertrude?
And I think that, we've heard, Chris and I both, we've heard that we're crazy in the sense that at this point we're both doctoral students at UF full-time, and we both work part-time for our fellowship, and both of us work over 40 hours for Projects for Haiti, trying to balance all of these things and trying to accomplish and change the world with 24 hours in a day. So I think that kind of makes us crazy, but really and truly, if that's what it takes to change the world, I think everyone should be crazy. And those who aren't crazy are the crazy ones.
And Troy? Wonderful.
So I think the word crazy is very subjective, and I think people tend to label different as synonymous with crazy, and I would disagree with that, but I think that, well, let's use a good example. So the craziest thing that I've done recently, according to the people around me, was leave Google, and I actually thought it wasn't crazy at all. They'd say, it's so risky, how are you going to leave Google? And I'd say, the way I actually legitimately thought about this was, the job market's really good. I have Google, the big name that everybody wants on their resume, but I want to build something. I want to try to build the next Google, right? Like I want to create my own thing that is the future that I envision, right? And so if I don't leave Google, then I'm risking not doing that. Like I'm risking not ever birthing the thing that's going to change a bunch of lives, including mine. So I actually viewed it as way more risky to not leave Google than to leave Google. So just a little bit different of a perspective, maybe help you frame some of your decisions in a little bit different of a light. And get away from the kind of groupthink and the things that your friends and family and everybody when everybody is all deciding that one thing should be one certain way, that's usually when it raises a red flag for me, and I question why is everybody so sure. So think about that stuff. When you find a large group of people that all believe the same thing, there's usually opportunity to find something that's being missed.
Excellent. Nothing crazy to me. Well, again, I just wanted to, on behalf of the student team and all of the parents, and for the sponsors, for the panelists, for our supporters in the community, in the school district, for the administration here at Buchholz High, I'd just like to say thank you very much for this honor to be with you tonight. And why don't we end it by just saying it's great to be a Buchholz Bobcat. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.